to the well where the water runs deep. Stay here with me. Stay here with me. Come to...
Welcome once again, dear friends, to the Creative Recovery Initiative, where we create some space to consider addiction and alcoholism and the places, both creative and transformative, through which we seek our recovery and healing. In the next few episodes of the Creative Recovery Initiative, I'd like to share my story, what we in AA like to call my experience, strength, and hope. Well, friends, we did it. We've made it to our 10th episode. The past number of vlogs on the Creative Recovery Initiative have been my story of my alcoholic journey, from addiction to sobriety. If you haven't taken the opportunity to hear that story, I would encourage you to do so. I've titled it Where Earth Meets Sky. It's a clumsy metaphor, I admit, but it suggests the messy, mucky, earthy realities of life as an alcoholic, but also the breadth, color, and expansiveness that arrive when we finally succumb to desperation and proclaim our lostness, our powerlessness over alcohol. This is the first and most important step from addiction, any kind of addiction, but especially for alcoholics. So now that I've told you how I first got sober, what next? Well, I'd love to tell you that the hopeful ending with which I left you was the end of my story. I was an alcoholic, I admitted powerlessness, committed to the steps of AA, and voila, a recovered drunk. But alas, far too often, it's just not that simple. It doesn't work that way. There's always more to the story. That's where we begin today, with what was originally a blog post on my Interwoven blog. I wrote this a year after a magical but muddled trip we took to the UK in 2016. I share it here exactly as I then wrote it. I've titled this, The Difference a Year Makes. This time last year, my wife and I were photo whoring and shaking fairy dust out of our heads. We had just returned from a head-spinning trip to the UK and were readjusting to life squeezed uncomfortably into North American shoes. Well, that and relearning to drive. 5 weeks in the UK had given us sore, flat feet from miles of trudging London's pavement skeleton. It meant overworked iPhones bulging with pictures, heads full of sky, the Isle of, and oddly named places like Tuhont-Irbont, Llantony, and Bedgellert. Many pages of writing and the faces of loved ones. Our hearts pulsated wildly, aglow in fresh memories. One is surely blessed to be found by adventures of this kind even once in a lifetime. This was our 4th trip, but arguably our best. Like the others, this hop across the pond had under it a built-in rationale to guide it. For Ray, it was largely book research. This bridge, that pub, this street corner, that tube station. For me, I was in search of something. I like to think it was maturity, but one can only expect so much in 5 weeks. I had some vague notion that a trip of this kind was what I needed for my ongoing pursuit of an even more vague notion. Home. No small feat for anyone, let alone one as prone as I to internal and eternal homelessness. My extensive writing on the subject had produced a better understanding perhaps, but with few certainties. Frankly, it just whet my appetite to learn more. Besides, it's a high-sounding reason to spend thousands of dollars traipsing around Britain. Rather noble, don't you think? For now, at least, such matters can wait for another time. A much more ominous discovery needs some attention. With that primer, I'll just put it out there. After 14 years of sobriety, Britton and I sat down for a drink, or 10. Well before our trip, a wispy but persistent voice had begun planting a series of tempting ideas in my mind. Rife, you're not an alcoholic. You simply lack self-control. It's been 14 years. That was then. This is now. Dude, relax. You're on holiday. Splurge a little. I'm generally a good guy, unless people tell me that just to get me off their lawn. But, annoyingly, a complex maze of dark veins courses through the ore of my otherwise rich life. I smile, knowing full well something isn't quite right. To be in Britain is to be awash in street-lit, woody pubs full of friendly chatter, darts and tumblers of frothy beer, otherwise known as pints. Scotland boasts famous distilleries on every bank and brae, in which is made the amber dew that bears her name. It is woven into the very DNA of the places I love most. It proved too much of a temptation, and I dove back in, head first, into a world that knew me well, and had apparently been watching and waiting for my return. Could you say no? Didn't think so. It was simple enough at first. A gift shop on Lindisfarne sold various types of mulled wine called mead. They handed out samples of the stuff like cocktail weenies at Costco. I would not discover until later how sharp its teeth would be as it slunk like a sweaty pole dancer down my lusty throat. "See how I love you," it said. "See how you've missed this," it said. "See how you've grown," it goaded, like the serpent from the tree. For an alcoholic, to say yes to the booze gods is to remove one's clothing of pride, oil up the pole of self-respect, climb on and plummet to the bottom of the pit known as despair. Most insidious of all is that we won't see any of it this way. "Nah, it's all good," we tell ourselves. "I've got this," we say. "I'm not one of those drinkers," we boast. "I just need to be discerning and exercise self-control," we convince ourselves. And the whole time, our pants are at our ankles and a noose tightly around our necks. Even as we speak the words, we choke them out while losing all remaining respectability. The days following our return were met with rapidly deteriorating self-control. Almost like magic, beer left the fridge faster than I could replenish it. I bought bottles of wine in 2s and 3s for us to enjoy. How thoughtful of me. I began drinking before, during, and after routine tasks, convinced that it was merely heightening my pleasure, or calming my nerves, or congratulating me on a workday finished. I began losing any sense of appropriateness, propriety, reason, even common sense. I had jumped into a vat of snakes and looked up, smiling, as they coiled around me. Now, after much heartache, a boatload of counseling, a brief sojourn with friends, a lot of books, and a good support network, I am sober once more. And in that sobriety, I gaze back into the past year and ache at the smoldering wreckage I've left behind. A wake of carnage, stupidity, and shame lay in heaps, along with my self-respect. And I begin again the arduous journey back to sanity, back to the reality of life without the crutches of inebriation and forgetfulness. Despite my foray into the forest of tomfoolery, the shimmer of this journey has stayed with us, even if our feet feel a bit more planted on familiar and yet somehow foreign soil. Home is where the heart is, say the poets. Home is where the mortgage is, say the realists. Well, home is your heart, say the mystics. And that home for me must be a sober one. It is deceptively easy looking up at the sky for answers when the ground is quicksand. My attention has harpooned itself too quickly in less than helpful directions. What I think my heart wants is rarely what it needs. And I guess my heart has been my quest all along. This receding shoreline of self-awareness can be wearisome at best, downright haunting at times. But while we're busy gawking at life through the viewfinder, the truly panoramic views are found in the small, easy-to-miss things. How watering roses in my garden can't keep up with the raw heat of a Yakima summer. Or just staying sober because you love all of it. Now I'm challenged to add my wilderness wandering to my expanding story and pray that it helps buttress my inner fortress. That it makes me wiser, a better man, a truer friend, a more attentive lover, a more insightful guide to others in similar peril. All this and more makes for the skeleton of a life. We get to place the meat on the bones with every smile given, every embrace, every mistake or triumph, every tear released to its rightful owners. It's all of a piece, and some of the time, it is peace.
Come to the well where the water runs deep. Stay here with me. Stay